Did I tell you about the time my sister and I climbed up the side of Buck Creek Mountain and into Kiamishi Wilderness? Well, let me tell you about our little adventure that day. As soon as we'd had some sort of breakfast, Mama let us fend for ourselves most days, but she never complained about what we ate from the kitchen. I headed out the door. Mama preferred us to make our own entertainment, and she was a very hands-off parent. If you wanted to talk, she was there, and she often told us stories about her own childhood. But other than that, we could do just about anything and go anywhere as long as we weren't under her feet. Those might have been her Harlequin days. She spent a lot of time back then just reading in her room. I think Daddy's drinking was getting bad, and this was her way of separating herself from the consequences, or even just dealing with that trauma. Anyway, during that time, I especially enjoyed going for long walks in the woods and finding little nooks and crannies to just be in the silence and think. Usually my younger sisters were off doing their own thing, but one day, my little sister Debbie decided she was going to follow me wherever I went. Maybe she thought I was having a little more fun than everyone else. I don't know. I was about 15 or so she would have been about 11. I didn't even notice that she'd followed me until we were about a mile from the house and heading to Buck Creek Bridge. Well, she was cheerful and talkative, which meant all I had to do was listen, and I didn't mind that much. Debbie had kinky curly blonde hair and blue eyes, unlike myself who'd inherited Dad's brown hair and brown eyes. So together we turned down dusty Buck Creek Road and walked a little ways before daring each other to cross the actual creek. It was about 30 feet across and pretty shallow, with lots of large boulders sticking up so that you could actually jump from rock to rock as long as you picked fairly flat ones. But it was warm weather, so if your feet got wet, or you fell in, it wouldn't be too cold. Once we crossed, we looked up the side of Buck Creek Mountain, and over to the left some distance away, we saw one of the cabins that vacationers had built up in Kiamishi Wilderness. Not really thinking it through, we decided to climb the side of the mountain, no vertical faces here, folks, and see the cabin up close. We never thought about snakes or other disasters. We just climbed and kept climbing. Neither one of us had watches, and that was decades before any of us had phones that you could carry in your pocket. Even if we'd had a phone, the mountains would have blocked cell tower signals, because they still do. But we were hardy girls. I wouldn't call us mountain folk. But we were strong and sturdy and did just about whatever popped into our heads. I remember having fun just climbing. It took us hours, though. In fact, it took the entire day. Somewhere in the middle of the trek, we lamented not having brought any food with us. We reached the top finally and found one of the logging roads to trudge down until we found the main road into Kiamishi Wilderness area. Fortunately, the rest of the long walk home was mostly downhill, so that helped. We got home around 6 p.m., starving to death, and it was still daylight. We were so tired we probably didn't even think about going anywhere else for a couple of days. Mama didn't even ask where we'd been all day. She had supper ready by the time we got home, though. Pinto beans and cornbread with fried potatoes and sweet tea. We had pinto beans a lot when I was growing up. It's still one of my favorite meals to this day. That adventure on Buck Creek is one of my favorite memories of growing up out in the sticks. 2 years later, I graduated high school and moved away to live with my Uncle Carl and his wife Connie. But I will never forget the freedom of those days and walking through those woods in rural Oklahoma.